You guys, I did not read a single Jessa Kane novella in the month of August. Travesty. So here we are. I read Stepbrothers' Secret. Now, Jessa Kane's novellas serve a purpose, and that purpose is not for rock-solid plot or airtight characters. It's a spice. It's quick and dirty spice with some entertaining plots. But I will say this one had a few plot holes that I was like, okay. So our male lead is the governor of a state that I simply cannot remember, and he is up for re-election and has just found out that he has a stepsister, or maybe he knew he had a stepsister. His dad married a woman who left her family, and she thought that her daughter was living with her ex-husband safely in a rural area in the country, but she didn't know that her husband had basically passed away, and this daughter has just been living the last few months by herself in the middle of nowhere. And he feels like if people were to discover that he had a family member that was living in such disarray, that it would reflect poorly on him and affect his future campaign. Just like a brain stall right there for a sec. So in the middle of the night, they take the private jet to this Hicksville nowhere countryside that she's been living in. It's in disarray. This place is falling apart. It doesn't have running water or electricity. She's like caked in mud, but spends every night on like this tire swing in the back amongst the fireflies. And it is love at first sight. As soon as he hears her giggle before he even sees her and goes, "I'm in love." And then he truly sees her and goes, "You belong to me." He thinks that, but he doesn't say it out loud. His dad, though, clocked the connection and was like, "That's your stepsister, dude." This really sweet moment where he's helping her down from the tire swings and he like hugs her and is like, "I'm gonna protect you now." She's also very instantly attracted to him and just like wants to please him and fit in. And now that she has family, and here's where a couple plot holes kind of got me. It is said multiple times that her mom left when she was in high school. And at this point, present day, she is barely over 18, which is a common theme for Jessa Kane. But her education level and her speech, it's very much like a My Fair Lady situation where she clearly doesn't have like the manners or sophistication that they do and that they want her to have to be accepted in the public eye in his family. So they're instantly like, we got to get tutors, we got to get stylists to make her presentable before we present her to the public. So he asks her in a very respectful way what her education level is, and she says that she had to drop out in the middle of high school when her dad got sick to help take care of him, and then when he passed, she just never went back because she was just taking care of herself. And at times she talks about how she practically like raised herself and taught herself everything she needed to know about like growing up and being a woman now that she's like 18 because her dad passed away and her mom left. But her mom left right before her dad got sick when she was in high school. So you didn't raise yourself. You had two parents and you were going to school and you have a high school level education. I felt like the level of, I don't know, ignorance that she had was unbelievable for someone with her background. But I digress. Like I said, this isn't just a Kane novella. Don't worry about that. So she's getting really confused about the way that her body is reacting to her stepbrother and her need for approval, and when he gives his approval, how that makes her feel. He got her own apartment in the penthouse of this very fancy building. He sets her up there straight off of the private jet from her old life. They get her cleaned up, and he decides, I cannot be alone with my sister, because they have like an elevator ride where she gets scared by the elevator because she's never been in an elevator in her whole life. So she jumps into his arms, and apparently this woman like doesn't wear underwear like ever. So he's like holding her and she's in this like chemise, like dirty nightgown. And so he's just like touching her bare butt cheeks, and it's all on camera, right? And he lingered a little bit too long for a stepbrother, appropriately. So after he sets her up, leaves her, goes downstairs to the security guy and goes, "You got to delete that." And he's like, "How much?" He's like, the question is, how much will it take to make sure the security cameras are off anytime I'm in the building? So for 2 seconds, he's like, I can't, I got to behave myself. And then he goes, "No." They definitely have a connection. He's very protective, very possessive over her. The next day, he gets a call from her tutor saying that she's like run away barefoot in like the local park. And he's so worried about her. He cancels his meetings. He runs after her. He finds her. Koala Bear carries her back to the apartment because there's too many men in the public lusting after her. They go back to her apartment and start watching a show, and it's General Hospital that's on, and these two characters are kissing very passionately. She's like, I hope someday I'll get kissed like that. He's like, don't say that in front of me, because he is in a constant state of firmness around her, and she's so incredibly innocent that she like touches him there, and he's like, what are you doing? She's like, sorry, I was just curious. Like, I knew that they got hard, but I didn't know that they were hard all the time. And he's like, they're not. Like, you're my stepsister. I shouldn't be feeling this way for you. But then she ends up coaxing him into kissing her, and it opens up the floodgates, and he's like, I'm gonna kill you. But here comes the ice bucket of water because the mom knocks on the door and is like, hey, sweetie, let's go shopping. So they keep their relationship on the DL for a long time. He takes her Virginia Slim card. He's very gentle, very sweet, but also just the right touch of aggressive. They're very compatible. There's also a touch of daddy schmink in here, which is very common for Jessa Kane, so if you like that. So she ends up having like a hot girl teen movie moment where she was already like a 10 out of 10, but then they glamorize her and they get rid of her accent, and she's been working really hard to be like a good addition to the family for him because he's on like track to be president, and they're introducing her into society. And he's just seething because he knows as soon as men see this girl, they're going to be just like drooling left and right, and no one can know that they're together. So before this like party that they have, he like drags her to his office like minutes before guests are supposed to arrive, and is like banging her against his desk in his office. And the dad comes in when he's like mid pump, and he doesn't even stop. He doesn't pause. He just says, get out. And the dad, because he wasn't an idiot, knew what was happening, and so he didn't even pause. He was just like, just so you know, people are showing up. Finish up. So while the party's happening, the stepdad, he comes over and he says, just so you know, you're always going to be secret. Like, you're never going to be able to be in public with him. Like, you're going to ruin his life and his career if he chooses to be with you. So is that really the life that you want? And he immediately, from across the room, notices her energy shift because they're just so in tune. And he is like, what are you saying to her? What's wrong? And she kind of has a breakdown, and he kicks everyone out of the party. He's like, what did you say to her? And she's like, nothing, that wasn't true. Just that we can never be together like the way that we want to. We can't have kids. We can't get married. Like, I'll always have to be your dirty little secret. And he's so in love with her that he's like, I'll give it all up for you. Just watch. And he busts out of the house, and there's still a reporter lingering outside of their mansion from the party. And he says, this is my stepsister, and I'm in love with her, and, you know, damn, blah, blah, blah. And the reporter records it all and then says, you know, this is the kind of honest, upstanding guy who would sacrifice this for love that I want running the country someday, so I'm not going to run this piece. And she just accepts the grand gesture for what it is and goes, thank you that you're willing to do this, but he's right. Like, the country needs you and the people need you. So then she proceeds to stay his secret for like 12 years. It takes him a few years to actually get into office, and then he runs 2 terms with her just being like his very involved stepsister that everyone thinks is very innocent. They have like a playroom that's like hidden in a trap door in the Oval Office. When they decide that they want to have a baby together, he says, like, we'll just tell the American people that you wanted to be a single mom and that you did in vitro. And after his second term, when he's doing like his final speech to like leave the office, he ends it, and then he just like kisses her in front of everyone, and everyone's like shocked. But now they could finally be together and be public. Like, can you imagine the scandal? But it was only 90 pages, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And if you've made it this far, you might too. Happy reading!